What is going on, guys? It is Bruial here, bringing you guys another deck profile. Just a few quick things before I start this video. This deck, that came out weird. This deck is old. As you can tell, Mizuki's at 1, Brain Control's supposed to be bam, Burial from the different dimensions at 1, blah blah blah. I'll get all that in a second. It's from 2009. And also, I made a video yesterday talking about a few updates, an upload schedule. Basically, I said I will upload Monday through Thursday. And then on Fridays, I could have Gaming Fridays. So if you guys want to see Gaming Fridays, please like this video, because none of you guys have commented on that video saying if you want to see Gaming Fridays. But I am up to 54 subscribers. Let's hit that 60 subscriber mark. I really want to hit that mark. If we could hit that mark, that would be freaking awesome. And if we could get just 5 likes on this video, that's all I'm asking is 5 likes on this video. If I could get 5 likes, that'd be freaking awesome. So this was my very first deck that I actually did not net deck. In case you guys don't know, I'm a net decker, and I'm one of those people where I'll net deck a deck and then make the changes as I see fit. And this was a deck that I absolutely fell in love with. I was going through some of my cards, and I found Burial from the Different Dimension. In case you guys don't know what it does, you select up to 3 monster cards that are removed from play and return them to their owner's graveyard, so they can be used on either player's removed from play zone, which is what it was called back then. Now it's called the banish zone. This deck, honestly, is my favorite deck of all time. It's one of my favorite decks that I've used competitively. I won my very first local tournament with it, which was a few years ago. Like I said, this was back in 2009. I've been playing competitively since like 2008, since tele-dad format, I believe that was. And this deck was 42 cards. I just got it off of TCG Player because I used to have an account on there, which I don't use anymore. And you could use the Dark Creator in it if you want. Caius was a freaking boss. Necro Gardener combined with Burial was such a troll move, and I'll be getting to all that in the future of this video. So, starting off with the monsters, you have 2 Armageddon Knights, which with Armageddon Knight, basically all the monsters in here are dark except for Mizuki, Morphing Jar, but everything else is dark. So it's easy just to dump a card that you want in the grave, like a Necro Gardener or a Plague Spreader. Easy targets to get in there. 1 Gale. Gale was so good back in 2009. You just summon it, have, attack, and then you would just sit there with a 1300 beater with maybe a couple counters in the back row. And then you also had triple Caius. Caius was also a boss. That's actually how I won my first local tournament, which I'll get to near the end of this video. And of course the boss monster of the deck, Dark Arm Dragon. It was a boss. You can manipulate the graveyard with this deck so much that your opponent, like I had multiple times with this deck where I'd be like, top deck, Dark Arm, drop Dark Arm. Wait, you have 3 darks? Yeah. Then check my graveyard. Dang, you do have 3 darks. Or if I don't have 3 darks, then I go Burial from the Different Dimension, which I already had set or in my hand. Return maybe 2 Necro Gardeners and a Mizuki. Drop Dark Arm. Yeah, I have 3 darks. And then 2 Goblin Zombie, just a good searcher. At the time, I believe it was at 2. I can't remember if it was at 3 back in 09. Been so long ago. Just an easy search card. Can get you another Goblin Zombie if you really need it. Your Spirit Reaper for stall. 1200 or less defense zombie type monsters, so you could get Mizuki into your hand, you could get Plague Spreader, you could get Zombie Master, you could get any of your zombies. And then 1 Gores, because you don't want to. You could get easily OTK'd back then because of Light Sworns having 3 charge and all that good jazz. 2 Mizuki. Mizuki was a boss once again. That's how I won my first locals. Such a good card. It's at 1 for a reason. I don't really see this card ever coming back. Maybe to 2, but even at 2, it's just so broken. And Morphing Jar, because if you're, I easily remember where I had hands where I sat with maybe 2 Necro Gardeners and a Plague Spreader, and I would top deck Morphing Jar and just be like, okay, set Morphing Jar, pitch all those cards, draw 5 new cards. It was so good in this deck. Plague Spreader, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. You have all these synchros for a reason, and you can easily manipulate the levels with the synchros in this deck. Sanguine, because most of your monsters are searchable. You have double Armageddon Knight, Gale, Morphing Jar, triple Necro, Plague, Goblin Zombie, Spirit Reaper. All these monsters are searchable. And then Zombie Master, because of obviously your zombie engine. And if you have like a Necro Gardener Plague in hand, then you could just pitch it, get out a Goblin Zombie, top deck, Plague. Hooray. Allure was at 2 back then, so you ran 2 Allure for that good draw power. Back then, Brain Control was at 1, so you wanted to use 1 Brain Control to get that OTK off and sack off your opponent's monster for Caius. Triple Barrel from the Different Dimension, another amazing card in this deck. One of the moves that I would do is I would have maybe a Necro Guard in a set, or even all three removed from play, now called Banish. So, like, let's say, for example, all three of my Necro Gardeners are banished and they go attack. I go, okay, Barrel from the Different Dimension, banish a Necro Gardener. Oh! And then they got to deal with it all over again. Foolish Burial was actually at 2 back then, so you would want to use 2 Foolish Burial to easily dump your Necro Gardeners, your Plague Spreaders, your Mizukis. I mean, so many good targets in this type of Foolish Burial. Heavy Storm was still at 1, obviously. Good back row removal. There really wasn't a lot of back row removal back then, except for MST, which, as you can see, is at 1. Heavy Storm, of course, and then Dust Tornado, which a lot of people didn't really use. Double Lightning Vortex was a very good tech card back in 09. And also, if you've got Necro Gardeners in hand and Plagues in hand that you want to ditch, or any kind of monster that you don't want in your hand, Mizuki, etc., you just pitch them, blow up all your opponent's monsters that are face up, I mean. MST was at 1, so you would definitely want to max out with the 1 MST and the Heavy Storm. That's what most decks used, because you did fear the back row, even though that you did have Dark Arm Dragon. You would want to be able to clear the field as much as you can and then drop Dark Arm. Rhoda still at 1, of course. Double Armageddon Knight, and your Necro Gardeners, if you really need to get those into your hand. And surprisingly, the 1 Rhoda did work out fine in the deck. I remember I really didn't have any problems with it. And then the 1 Scapegoat just for good defense and also sinkable with Plague Spreader. For the traps, you teched in, I teched in 1 D Prison. It proved to be enough. It was there when I needed it. Bottomless was at 2. I believe it just went to 2. So you would definitely max out on the double bottomlesses. Because it stopped so many decks back then, stopped the summoning of JD and all that good stuff. 1 Call the Haunted. Call the Haunted was at 1, so if your opponent tried to do anything fancy, you just go, oh, okay. You want to Heavy Storm me? Call the Haunted, Goblin Zombie, blow it up, get a search. And I remember I've won so many games with this tech card. I teched this in, and I just thought, God, this card's amazing. Magic Cylinder. My opponent would go, attack for game, and I'm all out of Barrel from the Different Dimensions. I'm all out of Necro Gardeners, and I go, Magic Cylinder for game. And then Mirror Force was at 1, so you would obviously want to use that. Torrential was at 1, so you would want to use that. For the extra deck, I didn't really have a lot of cards for it, but you would usually use what you could possibly use. There weren't really a lot of synchros out back then. I only had 1, but I did want to get a second. Revive King Hades. He's Plague Spreader Zombie plus 1 more non-turn zombie-type monsters, and he was makeable. Negate the effects of effect monsters destroyed by battle with zombie-type monsters you control. So essentially, he was a walking skill drain with 2450, so he could get over those 2400 monarchs. Ancient Fairy Dragon, it was a good defensive wall, and it was actually pretty good back then. Black Rose Dragon was obvious. Double Colossal Fighter, just amazing card. He could go up to possibly 3,000, 31, 32, 33. If you had all 5 of your warrior types in the grave, then he could be at 3,300 Peter. That just kept on coming back. And then Goyo Guardian was not banned. It was at 1. Such a good card. Just being able to take your opponent's monsters was great. Iron Chain Dragon was very amazing against Light Sworns, making them mill their top 3 cards. Yes, it is bad for them to mill, but the faster you can make them mill, the better. And even just those 3 cards could really hurt them back in the day. Magical Android and Psychic Life Transfer. I had teched these 2 cards. Level 7s were makeable, and I didn't really have a lot of level 7s, so I decided to use Psychic Life Transfer and Android. I just kept on gaining 600 life points if they try and attack it to blow it up. Which is what they would usually have to do to get my Android off the field. I would just Magic Cylinder them. They would take you know, whatever it was in order to get over 2,400. So either 2,450 or higher. Usually maybe 3,000, maybe somewhere around there. I can't really remember. Psychic Life Transfer. If my Magical Android ever got in the grave, just banish it and gain a free 1,200. Red Dragon Archfiend was very good back then, and just a great card still. It provided so many good plays, and even if you didn't attack with your other monsters, okay, your Necro Gardeners still go to the graveyard. Whoop-de-doo. Revive King, already explained him. Double Stardust, so amazing back in the day. I still think it's pretty good, but with Exceeds running around and Zector Hornet, you know, it's not as good. And Thought Rule Archfiend has always been a good card. Like I said, you did use a Psych Engine, so if you end up getting Android and Thought Ruler, Psychic Life Transfer, banish, gain 1,200. And X-Saber Rebellion, in case you don't know what he does when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent while they have 4 or more cards in their hand, plays 1 random card from their hand on top of their deck. Just another good level 7 that you could go into. Just 2,200. Like I said, I didn't really have a lot of Syncers back then, so I would use Urbellum, and he actually proved to be pretty well. Being able to put that card on top of your opponent's deck really helped out a lot. And then this was, like I said, this was in here in the main deck. You can use him if you want. He proved to be a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. So, how I won my very first local tournament. What happened was I was going against Gladiator Beasts. And what happened was I had no cards in my hand, and he had one back card, which was a bottomless, which I didn't know it was a bottomless. And then he was using, it was my friend actually, who I'm still friends with today, was using Gladiator Beast, and he had a Laquari on the field, 2100. So he goes 21, yeah. So I had stopped his attack the previous turn with Magic Cylinder, so he was sitting at 300. He'd attacked me for 2100 directly the next turn, so we were both sitting at 300. And I remember I was so nervous, like, oh my god, I gotta be able to win, gotta be able to win. And I top deck Burial from the Different Dimension, and I had a bunch of cards banished, but I remember I had a Necrogardna, a Plague Spreader, and a Mizuki removed from play. So I go activate Burial from the Different Dimension. He says okay. I go put back Necro, Mizuki, and Plague. And I remember I did have two Necrogardnas banished, but I decided to just put back one in case he stopped my play. So I go put back Necro, Mizuki, and Plague. Remove from play. Remove Mizuki. Get out Plague in defense mode. Sack off Plague. Get out the Caius from my hand. Target the Caius on my side of the field. Banish it for game. And at the time, I guess it was because they got the ruling wrong, but apparently now if you do this, I go summon Caius, target Caius, remove him for game, GG. He goes bottomless, and there was a bunch of people watching. They said, no, you can't bottomless, because if you bottomless, it still gets banished, and then therefore you take the 1,000. So I believe that at the time my friends had gotten that ruling wrong. I wasn't as good with rulings as I am now, or at least I'd like to think I'm good with rulings, or at least okay at best. So I ended up winning the tournament 0 to 300. I had 300 points left, and I ended up getting 6 turbo packs for the win, and I just thought that was so awesome. And I remember I pulled a rare Armageddon Knight out of one, which I still have. So, you guys, this was a retro deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is my first ever deck that I actually built on my own with no help from anybody else, no suggestions from anyone else. People did tell me to use Dark Grepher, but I only had one at the time, it was just the same one that I still have one right now. It's the same Dark Grepher that I have now from back then. So, if you guys enjoyed this retro deck profile, go on and try it on DN. I know I had a lot of fun with this deck, and I still do. I like to go on DN every now and again and play with this deck, and it's one of my favorite decks and will always be one of my favorite decks since it was my first local tournament I won with it. So thank you guys for watching, and remember, let's try and hit 60 subscribers, and 5 likes on this video would be awesome. Thanks so much for watching.